Yeah, so
I'm being murdered by an acorn tree.
hello and welcome everyone to an unlikely matchup. Today we have on test the CLA 45 AMG and the Golf GTI Clubsport. The CLA 45 that I'm sitting on right now has 280 kilowatts, 475 newton meters, and costs in the region of 820,000 rand.
And it'll do 0 to 100 in 4.2 seconds.
It will.
The Clubsport that I'm sitting on is significantly cheaper at 545,000 rand. It's got 195 kilowatts and 350 newtons, except that on overboost function, which is basically when you hit the kick down on the accelerator pedal, it'll deliver an extra 10% for 10 seconds. So that bumps it up to 213 kilowatts, as I say, just for 10-second bursts. And this will do 0 to 100 in the DSG in 5.9 seconds. So it's quite a bit slower off the mark. Obviously this is all-wheel drive, this is front-wheel drive, so there is a difference there. So why don't you walk us through what you think of the Merc?
Okay, look, on its own, the Merc is pretty damn good. When we got this car, slightly by accident, I was very excited because it's an AMG, and AMGs are always rather exciting.
Yes.
It's four-wheel drive, so that makes it a bit more. It's not tail happy, obviously, like a rear-wheel drive car. The looks, I think, Merc again has done very well on the looks.
Yeah, they've got this thing spot on. The proportions on this are amazing.
They're really good.
Yeah,
they're really quite amazing, and you get noticed in this car. People see it, and everyone wants to know about it.
Yeah.
On the inside, again, it's typical Mercedes.
Good old Merc, yeah.
So no complaints from there. My only complaint on the interior is I could never really find a nice driving position. I don't know why. I've not struggled with AMG Mercs before.
I found
just this particular one.
Seat is not as good as other AMG cars that I've been in.
Yeah.
I think you can spec different seats. You can get a more bucket.
I didn't like the headrest. I felt the headrest.
Yeah, the headrest is quite far forward.
Yeah, it kept pushing me forward, and I also find I couldn't bring the steering wheel quite as close as I wanted to.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of what I think from a looks perspective. You know, you can't really complain too much on that.
And driving?
Okay, so from a driving perspective, it's quite a weird experience. I mean, in a straight line, this thing will destroy most things, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be spending north of R1 million to go as quickly as this thing does in a straight line.
I mean, I raced a CLS 55 AMG, the V12 version somehow, and it was the older version, I'll admit, but this off the line,
demolished
it. Absolutely demolished it. So in the real world, this car is incredibly quick.
Yeah.
And I think if you put it in conditions that are less than ideal, it's going to do very, very well.
Yeah, in the wet, this'll monster things worth a lot more.
Absolutely.
With no problems. That four-wheel drive system really does its job. It's a bit of a point and squirt machine, I found.
It is.
In the dry.
I was going to say that. Having said all of that, it's not. I didn't find it that much fun to drive.
Yeah.
Where I do characterize most AMG Mercs as being incredibly fun cars to drive because they're rear-wheel drive. You can get the tail out and have a great time. This car, not so much because it's four-wheel drive. So overall, I wasn't hugely sold.
Yeah, to me, AMG Mercs aren't quite as precision tools as some of the other sort of German brands.
Yeah.
Well, one other.
Guess which one?
Yeah. So I must admit, I agree. I found that this was very point and squirt like. You know, you get in a straight line, put your foot down, and it goes like a hammer. But you know, around a bend, it's quick, but I found it a bit sort of heavy feeling and maybe a bit understeery.
Yeah, you do feel like you're driving a big car. It feels like a big car.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a muscle car sensation, if anything.
That's gone well.
but madly fast. Except the throttle response, by the way. I don't know if you noticed. I didn't like the throttle response very much.
Delayed.
It's very delayed. Even in the sport setting modes and all that stuff, still a bit too delayed for my liking. But when you're winding a 2 litre up to 280 kilowatts, you're going
to expect some delay.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about the GTI?
The GTI. Now, we must both admit that we aren't the biggest VW fans.
No, we're not.
Probably as far from it as you could possibly have got. Until I went and drove this thing on its South African launch down in Cape Town. And I came back absolutely raving about the thing. Like, people thought I'd been abducted by aliens. And,
I dismissed you completely out of hand.
Yeah. So just to run through some of the stuff about the Clubsport. Okay, it's the anniversary edition, 40th year of the GTI worldwide. It's not really being marketed as that because we in South Africa got the GTI a bit later, so they've just left it as Clubsport and that's it. The revisions over the standard GTI are extensive. They might not look it from the outside, but trust me, it's completely different underneath.
Yeah, that's where the key is.
Yeah, that's exactly where the key is. This thing's running downforce all over the show. Everything in this front bumper adds downforce. The rear wing, the rear diffuser, all that stuff is adding downforce, which allows the engineers to then refine the chassis setup and suspension to not need to limit body roll and all that stuff quite as much because there's downforce, and therefore the suspension can be more compliant, more supple, and keep your tires in touch with the road better. It's got a limited slip differential, which is the same as the one out of the Performance Pack GTI.
Okay.
So that's no different really, except that obviously now you're able to put your power down much more effectively.
Easier. Yeah.
Obviously the power is up on the standard GTI and quite a bit when you hit that overboost function. What else is different? Oh, the steering rack's different. So it's got I'm trying to remember how they described it, but it's sort of like it's a variable steering rack, but it's more mechanical than the usual ones are that come in a GTI. Don't quote me on the technicalities around that, but that aids a lot in terms of steering feel. I
was going to say, from behind the wheel in this GTI, it feels like a completely different animal.
Yeah.
It makes the standard one feel like a big, hefty, heavy, horrible machine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the steering rack's actually quicker as well. So not only is it slightly different in the way it's variable, but it's also a quicker rack. And yeah, I mean the results are ridiculous. If you go and look on something like fastestlaps.com, this GTI is quicker than like everything basically. Yeah. It's much quicker than this.
Way quicker. And this does 0 to 104.2. That's 5.9.
Yeah.
That's a massive difference. Yeah. That's a huge gulf.
280 kilowatts, 195 kilowatts.
And yet this is quicker around a track.
Around a track, this is quicker. I mean, you choose any track, it doesn't matter. Go to Nürburgring, go to Hockenheim, go to anywhere, the GTI is quicker.
Which is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Around Hockenheim, this thing's faster than an E92 M3. I mean, that's insane. It's just insane.
We were trying to figure out, can you go quicker for the money? No. And the answer is easily no.
Yeah.
And
you have to spend a lot more.
You've got to spend a hell of a lot more.
Yeah. Name cars, and this is quicker, basically. I mean, unless you get into the current generation M3, C63, etc. And
then you're well over $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. It's silly. It's double the money.
So from a bargain perspective, actually, if you're performance driving oriented, there's no reason why you shouldn't have the Clubsport GTI.
Yes.
I still maintain that the normal GTI is quite boring actually.
Look,
I get bored after a while.
I fully agree. But when you consider that this is only maybe 80,000 Rand more than the performance pack, just spend the money.
It's seriously
it really is worth it. And what's more exciting is that we're getting 43 Clubsport S's, which is the
it's got the
2-door stripped out, no back seats.
That's going to be amazing.
Even more mad suspension. Yeah.
I mean, if it's taken two people who admittedly aren't VW fans and aren't GTI fans, and both are raving about a GTI, it must be that good. It just has to be.
So I think in a competition of which would you rather have,
I would take the GTI all day long.
Every day.
Like if you if you want the point and squirt muscle car, this is the one for
Yeah.
you, definitely.
Yeah.
But people are going to be saying, oh, well, this is a hatchback and this is a sedan, you know, you can't really
Yeah.
compare. You can actually, because it's still
Yeah.
a GTI. It's
Yeah.
massively practical.
Yeah.
It's got a huge boot.
Yeah.
Admittedly, the Merc's boot is really big. It's long,
It's very deep.
but it's
yeah.
quite narrow actually. The entrance
Yeah.
to it. So, on a day-to-day practicality point of view, I
Yeah.
can't see this doing any more or less than the Merc.
And you can compare to the A45 AMG, which is slightly cheaper than this one, but
Yeah.
is a hatchback and therefore should compete.
Exactly, and this
Um,
is more comfortable to drive.
That I might argue with
No,
you.
definitely more
I
comfortable.
thought the Merc was better.
I disagree
Really?
entirely. I much preferred the ride of the GTI.
You see, I found the ride of the GTI a lot more sporty, let's say. I know that's a stupid generic term, but to me, I found this a bit more sort of rigid. That felt a bit softer to me.
I felt this sort of crashes over bumps a little bit more, whereas
Okay.
this, it's hard,
Yeah,
but it rides the bumps better. I could feel the
Yeah.
work that the engineers had done
yeah,
to soften things up a little bit and be a bit more supple.
yeah.
To, as you say, keep the tires on the
On
road
the
the
road,
whole
yeah.
time. So that's, I think, why I preferred the ride of the GTI
Yeah.
better. It's also got a much better driving position, so much more comfortable
Yes.
sitting behind the wheel.
Throttle's more responsive in this guy.
Throttle is more responsive in the GTI.
That said, interior is definitely better in the Merc.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, interior is just general look,
Yeah.
quality, etc.
100% better.
Better in the Merc.
Having said that, though, in terms of, I said that this gets you a lot of looks, and it does get you a lot of looks, particularly with the exhaust note, which is
Yeah.
typical Merc,
Yeah.
insane loud, which is
Yeah.
great fun. But the GTI,
Yeah, more
you
people
get
asking about
so
this.
noticed.
Yeah.
Everyone, we've literally parked these two cars next to each other at the robots.
Yeah, and had people ask about this
About the
and sort of
GTI.
look at the Merc and
They
say,
go,
"Oh, nice car, but
this."
can I know about this?"
Exactly.
Yeah. It's that might be a special thing in South Africa because
could
we're
be,
so
but-
GTI mad here. Yeah, that could be a reason for it, but
100%.
still,
but
when you've spent 30 grand, 300,000 rand less, sorry. Yeah,
and you're getting more looks, people are
yeah,
asking you more. I pitched up to a restaurant just to get some takeaway in the GTI in a BMW t-shirt, and the guy asked me, why am I wearing a BMW t-shirt and driving a VW? People know, I mean, I parked fairly far away from the restaurant. They
Yeah.
noticed the car immediately. It's quite a phenomenon.
yeah. It is.
So in terms of head-to-heads, this has not been I think it's been a landslide victory.
Well, I think it's an unexpected victory because
It's a 100%
Yeah.
unexpected victory.
because of how good that is on paper.
Yeah.
And this is just better.
It's a weird
Yeah.
thing. We never
Weird.
thought we'd come to this decision.
No,
When we looked at the cars, we were both fighting over the Merc.
yeah,
By the end of day one, we were both fighting over the GTI.
yeah,
And it's VW's done a great job, and I hate to admit it.